No nurse lasted a week with the Korean Mafia boss until the African nurse did what no one else dared to do. Before we begin, tell us in the comments which city you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. 3 nurses ran through the gates of the Huang estate as if escaping a fire. The first held her suitcase in one hand and her shoe in the other. The second was crying into her phone, yelling something about suing someone. The third stopped in the middle of the parking lot, looked back, and whispered, "God help the next one." Amara Okafor walked past them with a backpack over her shoulder, sunglasses on her head, and a calm smile on her face. "Dramatic people," she said aloud, adjusting her bag strap. The estate coordinator, a woman named Miss Park, who looked like she had given up on life, stood at the marble entrance with a clipboard and zero hope. "You're the African nurse?" Miss Park asked, studying Amara from head to toe, as if she were evaluating a soldier before battle. "That's me, Amara Okafor, ready for duty," she said, offering a cheerful handshake. Miss Park didn't take it. "Did you read the contract?" "I did." "The whole contract? Even the small print about not suing the estate in case of psychological trauma?" "I thought it was creative." Miss Park sighed deeply. "Listen carefully. Huang Minjun is complicated. Complicated like complaints about the food, or complicated like throws chairs? Complicated like 15 nurses in 6 months." Amara blinked. "Wow, that's almost an Olympic record." "This isn't a joke." "I know, but if I don't laugh, I'll cry, and my mascara is only waterproof to a certain degree." Miss Park didn't smile. She just handed Amara an ID badge, turned, and started walking down endless white marble hallways, lined with modern art and heavy silence. Amara followed, trying not to look impressed, but it was hard. The place was bigger than 3 hospitals combined, and more beautiful than anything she'd ever seen, even in the luxury magazines her sister collected back in Lagos. "He's on the 3rd floor, East Wing," Miss Park muttered as they climbed a staircase that seemed to never end. "Try not to take things personally. He isn't mean, just impossible." "Impossible? I worked in an ER in Lagos during election week. Trust me, I've seen everything." Miss Park stopped in front of a carved wooden double door, looked at Amara with a mix of pity and respect, and knocked 3 times. Silence. "Come in," a deep, irritated voice said from inside. Miss Park pushed the door open, gave Amara a quick gesture, and practically ran off. Amara took a deep breath, put on her professional smile, and stepped inside. The suite was absurd. King-sized bed, floor-to-ceiling windows, heated floors, a balcony overlooking Seoul's skyline. And in the center of it all, standing near the window, was him, Huang Minjun. Tall, broad shoulders, sharp jawline, dark and intense eyes that seemed to pierce through anyone, wearing all black and holding a silver cane like a weapon ready for battle. He looked her over from head to toe, making no effort to hide his disdain. "You're the new one." "I'm Amara. Nice to meet you, Mr. Wang," she said, closing the door behind her. "You won't last." Amara blinked. "Excuse me?" "You won't last," he repeated slowly, as if speaking to a child. "None of them do. You can leave now and save us both time." Amara crossed her arms. "Well, that's the warmest welcome I've ever received." "Was that rehearsed or spontaneous?" Minjun narrowed his eyes. "I don't need another nurse hovering over me, testing me, treating me like an experiment. I'm dismissing you before you even start." "How convenient. But here's the thing. I signed a contract, and unlike your other 15, I need this job. So I'm sorry to say, Mr. Huang, but you're stuck with me." His jaw tightened. No one had ever answered him like that. "You don't understand. I'm ordering you to leave." "And I'm politely declining." "You can't decline a direct order from me." "I just did." Minjun took 2 steps toward her, leaning on his cane, and Amara noticed, even angry, even arrogant, he was clearly in pain. The way he moved his left shoulder, the tension in his jaw, the slight tremor in his hand gripping the cane. Her tone softened just a little. Look, I get it. It must be awful having strangers constantly coming and going, poking, questioning, taking notes. But I'm not here to be your enemy. I'm here to help. And if you give me one chance, just one, I promise I won't treat you like an experiment. Minjun stared at her in silence. Those dark eyes studied every inch of her face, searching for flaws, lies, weaknesses. But Amara didn't look away. 1 week, he finally said, his voice low and dangerous. If in 1 week you annoy me, ask a stupid question, or try to give me a lecture about positivity, you're out. Amara extended her hand. Deal. He looked at her hand as if it were a trap, but after a long moment, he shook it. His hand was warm, firm, and trembling slightly. By the way, Amara said, letting go of his hand, just so you know, I've seen men far scarier than you whining about a fever. So relax, Mr. Huang. You don't intimidate me. Minjun was completely speechless, and for the first time in months, something close to a smile, small, irritated but real, almost appeared on the corner of his mouth. Almost. Amara lasted exactly 17 hours before Minjun decided to really test her. At 6 in the morning, he rang the silver bell beside the bed 3 times, loud as if summoning a gang meeting, and waited. Amara appeared at the door of the suite with her hair in a messy bun, uniform wrinkled, and a cup of coffee in her hand. Good morning, Mr. Huang. Did you sleep well or spend the night planning how to torture me? Minjun, sitting on the bed with pillows stacked behind his back and the expression of someone about to enjoy a show, ignored the question. I want tea. Amara blinked. Please? Tea, now. Got it. Forgot the magic word at home, huh? Happens. She turned to leave. Wait. Amara stopped, looked over her shoulder. Yes? Not just any tea. I want traditional Korean barley tea, served according to proper protocol. Fresh roasted barley, ceramic teapot, 5 minutes of steeping. Exact temperature, 85 degrees Celsius. She stared at him. You have a tea thermometer. I do. Of course you do. Amara sighed. Anything else? Want me to sing a song while I make it? Don't be ridiculous. Just checking. 20 minutes later, Amara came back with a ceramic tray, a steaming teapot, and the look of someone clearly improvising. Minjun watched her every move as she placed the tray on the table beside his bed. Is that the correct teapot? It's a teapot. I didn't ask if it's a teapot. I asked if it's the correct one. Amara picked up the teapot, turned it around and pretended to inspect it like a museum piece. Looks pretty correct to me. Shiny, ceramic, holds hot liquids. Quality approved. Quality approved. Nigerian Standards Organization. We approve everything. Minjun narrowed his eyes. You're mocking me. Me? Never. She poured the tea into the cup with the care of someone trying to defuse a bomb. Here you go, Mr. Huang. Hot barley tea, traditional. With all the respect my lack of Korean ceremony training allows. He took the cup, smelled it, took a sip. Pause. It's cold. Impossible. It is cold. Amara crossed her arms. Okay, I'll redo it, and use the correct teapot this time. There's an incorrect one? 3. Oh, dear Lord. On the second try, Amara returned with another teapot, this one with delicate hand-painted designs and a slightly less patient expression. Minjun took a sip, made a dramatic pause, and set the cup back on the saucer. Sugar? Amara took a deep breath. You didn't ask for sugar. I'm asking now? Amazing. She grabbed the sugar bowl from the tray, conveniently already there, and placed it in front of him with a forced smile. Anything else? Want me to taste it first to make sure it's not poisoned? Minjun almost smiled. Almost. No, but I want you to organize my medication schedule. It's already organized. Reorganize it. Why? Because I want it. Amara grabbed the clipboard from the bedside table, looked at the list of medications, then looked at Minjun. Your schedule is perfect. Correct intervals, balanced doses, optimized timing. If I change anything, it'll make it worse. I don't care. Reorganize. Mr. Huang, With all due respect, no. The silence that followed was so heavy, Amara could almost hear her own heartbeat. Minjun looked at her as if she'd just committed treason against the entire organization. You just told me no. Technically, I said no with an all due respect in front of it, so it was polite. No one tells me no. Welcome to the Nigerian experience, Mr. Huang. We're annoying like that. The two assistants cleaning at the other end of the room froze. One whispered something in Korean that probably meant she's getting fired in 3, 2. But Minjun didn't fire Amara. He just kept staring at her as if trying to decode an impossible puzzle. You're the most irritating nurse I've ever met. Thank you. I'll put that on my resume. That wasn't a compliment. I know, but I'll pretend it was. Minjun leaned back against the pillows, clearly exhausted but too stubborn to admit it. Leave. Gladly. Amara picked up the tray and turned toward the door. Wait. She stopped and looked back. What now? Want me to rearrange the pillows too? Minjun hesitated, just for a second, but Amara noticed. The pain's worse today. He looked away. None of your business. Actually, it literally is my business. It's in the contract. Page 3, paragraph 2. I'm fine. Of course you are. Amara set the tray back on the table, grabbed the stethoscope hanging from her neck, and stepped closer. Take a deep breath. I don't need... Breathe. Minjun glared at her, clearly annoyed, but after a tense moment, he obeyed. Amara placed the stethoscope on his chest, listened carefully, and frowned. Your heart's beating fast because I'm irritating, or because you're in pain and trying to hide it like a stubborn teenager? I'm not a teenager. Then stop acting like one. Amara took the digital thermometer. Open your mouth. I won't. She slipped the thermometer in before he could finish. Beep. Mild fever. Nothing serious, but you need rest. Amara wrote on the clipboard. And before you ask, no, you can't get out of bed today. No, you can't have meetings. Yes, you're going to take your medicine on schedule because I'm good at my job and you're too stubborn to admit you're suffering. Minjun stayed silent for a long moment. Then, against all odds, he said, You're unbearable. I know, it's part of my charm. And for the first time since Amara arrived at the estate, Huang Minjun actually smiled. It was small, quick, almost invisible, but it was there. And as Amara left the room carrying the tray of lukewarm tea in her wounded pride, she thought, okay, maybe I can last more than a week. She didn't know that Minjun, alone in his suite, was still smiling, and she definitely didn't know that Miss Park, standing on the other side of the door, holding a stack of resignation papers, was for the first time in months thinking about tearing them all up. The scream came at 3 in the morning. Amara woke from a deep sleep, jumped out of the guest room bed next to Minjun's suite, and ran barefoot across the marble floor, heart pounding. When she opened the door, she found Minjun bent over at the edge of the bed, one hand clutching his chest, the other gripping the sheet so tightly his knuckles were white. Mr. Huang, he tried to speak, but only a choked sound came out. Amara turned on the lamp, rushed to his side, and knelt on the floor. Look at me, Minjun. He raised his eyes, and she saw something she didn't expect. Fear. Pure, raw, real. I can't breathe. Yes, you can. Look, I'll show you how. Amara took his hand and placed it on her own chest. Feel this. Breathe with me, slowly. Minjun shook his head, desperate. It's not working. Because you're breathing like a vacuum cleaner. Stop. Breathe slowly. He tried, failed, tried again. Amara held his face in her hands, forcing eye contact. Listen to me. You're Huang Minjun. You run one of the most powerful organizations in Seoul. You're not going to be defeated by a panic attack. Now breathe like a normal person, please. He blinked. Did you just tell me to breathe like a normal person? It worked, didn't it? You stopped gasping. Minjun realized she was right. His breathing had slowed down, still uneven, but better. Amara picked up her stethoscope. I'm going to listen to your heart. Don't move. She placed the instrument on his chest and listened closely. The heartbeat was still fast, but not dangerous. It's a panic attack, not cardiac. You'll be fine. Minjun closed his eyes, exhausted. I thought I was. I know, but you're not. Amara grabbed a glass of water from the nightstand and handed it to him. Drink slowly, he obeyed, taking 3 small sips. His hands were still shaking. Does this happen often? Amara asked, sitting beside him on the bed. Minjun didn't answer. Mr. Huang, I need to know. If it happens often, we need to adjust your treatment. Sometimes, he admitted quietly. When? When I wake up from nightmares. About what? He opened his mouth, closed it, looked away. Amara didn't push. She just sat there in silence, letting him choose. After a long pause, Minjun whispered, About her. Amara frowned. Her who? My fiancée. He swallowed hard. She passed away 3 years ago. The weight of those words filled the room like smoke. Amara felt her heart tighten. I'm sorry. Everyone says that. I know. Minjun looked out the window where the city lights lit up Sleeping Seoul, but his eyes saw nothing. No one understands. No one asks how it happened. No one wants to know what I feel. They just want me to get over it. Move on. Take over the organization completely. Act like nothing happened. And you don't want to. It's not that I don't want to. He rubbed his face with both hands. It's that I can't. Every time I think about moving on, I feel like I'm betraying her memory. Amara took a deep breath. Can I say something without getting fired? Minjun made a vague gesture as if to say, go ahead. I think you're confusing loyalty with prison. Remembering her, honoring her, that's beautiful. But staying trapped in the pain? That's not love, Mr. Wang. That's punishment, she paused. And I'm sure she wouldn't want that for you. Minjun turned to look at Amara. His eyes were red but dry. You didn't know her. No, but I know you. And it's clear you're the kind of man who loves with everything he has. So she was probably the kind of woman who loved that way too. And someone who truly loves doesn't want to see the other person suffer forever. Minjun stayed silent. Amara stood up, picked up a blanket folded on the armchair, and placed it over his shoulders. Lie down, rest. I'll stay here until you fall asleep. You don't have to. I know, but I'm staying anyway. She sat in the armchair next to the bed, pulled her legs up, and got comfortable. By the way, just wondering, do you snore? Minjun blinked, confused. What? Snore? Make noise while you sleep, like a bear or a truck engine. I don't know. Great, I'll find out. If you do, I'm throwing a pillow. For the first time that terrible night, Minjun smiled. A real smile, small, tired, but genuine. You're strange. Thank you. I'll add it to my resume next to annoying. He lay down, pulled the blanket up to his chin, and closed his eyes. Amara sat there, watching his breathing slow down, his face muscles relax, the weight of the past years fading away, even if just for a few hours. When she was sure he was asleep, she whispered, You'll be okay, Minjun, I promise. And without her knowing, Minjun heard it. When Amara woke up, it was morning. Sunlight filled the suite through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and she was completely crooked in the armchair, her neck aching, her hair looking like it had been attacked by a fan. Minjun was sitting on the bed, watching her with an expression Amara couldn't quite read. Good morning, sleeping beauty, he said in a tone that was almost amused. Amara rubbed her eyes. What time is it? 8. You slept 5 hours in an armchair. Impressive. I've slept in worse places. Once I dozed off standing during a 12-hour shift. She stretched, wincing. How are you feeling? Better? He paused. Thank you for last night. Amara smiled. You're welcome. Comes with the package. Annoying but efficient nurse. Minjun almost laughed. Almost. Would you like breakfast? He asked. Amara blinked. Are you inviting me to breakfast? No, I'm ordering you to eat breakfast with me. Why? He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. Because you'll faint if you don't eat something. How thoughtful. Amara stood up. But only if there are hot choc. There are hot choc. Then I accept your order, Mr. Huang. When she left to get ready, Minjun stayed there alone with a strange feeling in his chest. It wasn't pain. It wasn't fear. It was something else, something he hadn't felt in a long time. And for the first time in years, Huang Minjun realized that maybe, just maybe, he could live again. Breakfast with Minjun had been surprisingly normal, but Amara had learned long ago that normal never lasted long in a Mafia estate. She was putting medical files away on the suite's bookshelf when a book fell. Old pages scattered across the marble floor, and something rolled under the bed. A small bottle. Amara bent down, picked it up, and froze. It was an old medicine bottle. The label faded. Expiration date 2 years ago. She looked at the shelf, pulled out another book. More bottles hidden, then another and another. 7 bottles in total, all expired. All hidden like dirty secrets between pages of Korean poetry. What are you doing? Amara spun around. Minjun stood at the door, still in his robe, his expression caught between surprise and panic. I could ask you the same thing. Amara raised the bottles. What is this? Give them back. Answer first. Minjun crossed the suite in 3 long strides and tried to snatch the bottles from her hand. Amara stepped back. Oh no, now I need to know. What are you hiding? It's none of your business. I'm your nurse. Literally, everything about your health is my business. She turned one of the bottles and read the label. This is an anti-anxiety medication. High dose, prescribed 3 years ago. Why are you keeping this? Minjun clenched his fists. Because I need it. Need it or can't throw it away. Silence. Amara lowered her voice, but didn't let go of the bottles. Minjun, tell me, please. He looked away, his jaw tight. They were prescribed after she died. I took them to sleep, to stop thinking, to function. And you still take them? No. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I stopped months ago, but I can't throw them away. I know it's ridiculous. I know it sounds weak. Amara let out a laugh. Sorry, but you just used the exact word I was about to say. Minjun blinked. What? Weak. I was about to tell you. It's not weakness. She set the bottles on the table. Look, I get it. Throwing them away feels final. Like closing a door you're not ready to close. It's more than that. Minjun sat on the edge of the bed, defeated. Those pills were the only thing that worked when I couldn't breathe. When I woke up in the middle of the night thinking I'd lose my mind. And now I still wake up like that. But I don't take anything anymore. Because you're afraid of getting dependent. Because I'm afraid that if I take them again, I'll never stop. The weight of those words filled the room. Amara sat beside him. Not too close, but close enough. You know, emotional trauma is real, right? It's not weakness. It's not nonsense. It's a wound, just like any other. And wounds need to be treated. Minjun turned to her. I'm the head of a powerful organization. I can't have emotional wounds. I need to be strong. I need to lead. I need to be human, Amara interrupted. Because surprise you are, and humans feel pain. Humans suffer. Humans keep expired pills because they don't yet know how to let go of the past. He stayed silent. Amara picked up the bottles one by one and placed them in his hand. Here's my proposal. We'll throw these away together now, and if you panic, I'll hold your hand and we'll breathe like normal people. Deal. Minjun looked at the bottles, then at Amara, then back at the bottles. What if I can't? Then we'll try again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next, until you can. He took a deep breath, then slowly stood up and walked to the bathroom. Amara followed him. Minjun stood in front of the trash can for a long moment, holding the bottles as if they were made of glass. I hate this, he whispered. I know. I hate feeling weak. You're not weak. You're just tired of carrying the weight alone. Minjun closed his eyes. Then, with a quick motion like ripping off a Band-Aid, he tossed the bottles into the trash. The sound of them hitting the bottom echoed in the bathroom. Amara took his hand. Breathe, he did. Once, twice, 3 times. I did it, Minjun said, almost in disbelief. You did. I actually did it. Yes, Mr. Wang, and the world didn't end. You didn't fall apart. You just let go. Minjun looked at Amara, and for the first time she saw something new in those dark eyes. Hope. Thank you, he said, voice rough. You're welcome. Amara released his hand. Now come on, let's eat something. Emotional drama makes you hungry. Minjun laughed, a low but real sound. You're impossible. I know, it's part of the package. They went back to the suite, but when Amara turned to grab her clipboard, she noticed Minjun was still standing there, looking at her. What is it? Nothing, just... He hesitated. Why do you care so much? Amara paused. Because someone has to, and apparently no one else is doing the job right. But you barely know me. True, but I know pain, and I know what it's like to be alone in it. She smiled, but there was sadness in her eyes. No one should have to go through that alone, Minjun. Not even a Mafia boss. Something changed in the air between them. It wasn't just professional respect. It wasn't just friendship. It was something else. Deeper, more dangerous. And they both realized it at the same time. Minjun stepped back, as if he'd touched something hot. I need to rest. Of course. Amara nodded a little too fast. I'll organize the files. She left the suite quickly, her heart racing. On the other side of the door, Minjun leaned against the wall, ran a hand over his face and whispered to himself, What's happening to me? But he already knew the answer, and it scared him more than any panic attack ever had. Amara couldn't sleep that night. She kept turning in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about warm hands and glances that lasted a second longer than they should. At 2 a.m, she gave up. She grabbed a book and went out to the balcony of the guest room. That's when she heard it. It wasn't a scream this time. It was worse. Someone was crying, low, muffled, desperate. Amara dropped the book, crossed the hallway, and stopped in front of Minjun's suite door. She knocked softly. Minjun? Silence. She knocked again. Minjun, it's me, Amara. Can I come in? His voice came weak, broken. Go away. Amara opened the door anyway. He was sitting on the floor, leaning against the side of the bed, his head in his hands. His shoulders shook. She had never seen a man so powerful look so shattered. Hey! Amara knelt beside him. What happened? I told you to leave. And I pretended not to hear. It's part of my annoying charm. She touched his shoulder gently. Talk to me. Minjun lifted his face. His eyes were red and swollen. I dreamed about her. Amara didn't have to ask who her was. Tell me. He hesitated. Then, as if releasing something that had been trapped for years, he began to speak. It was an attack. A targeted hit meant for me. We were leaving a restaurant. I saw the car coming. I pushed her out of the way, but... His voice broke. Minjun. She was hit anyway. The bullet was meant for me, but she took it. She was bleeding in my arms, and I couldn't stop it. I pressed on the wound. I screamed for help. I begged her to stay. He wiped his eyes angrily. She was in surgery for 8 hours. The doctor said she had a chance. I held her hand when she woke up. She smiled at me. She said, You're okay. Like she was relieved I wasn't hurt. Tears came freely now. And then she just stopped breathing, right there, with me holding her hand. And the last thing I said to her before the attack was, We'll talk later, because I was angry, because she wanted to leave the organization, and I didn't agree. And now later will never come. The tears came freely now. Amara sat down next to him on the cold floor, her shoulder against his. It wasn't your fault. Yes, it was. I was the target. She died because of me, because of what I am, what I do. You did what anyone would have done. You tried to protect her. You tried to save her. She turned to him. Do you think she would blame you? Minjun was silent. Answer me. Do you think she would blame you? I don't know, he whispered. I think I do. Amara took a deep breath. I think she loved you too much to want you spending the rest of your life punishing yourself for something you couldn't control. But I deserve to be punished. I deserve to carry this. Why? Because you survived? Amara shook her head. Minjun, surviving isn't a crime. Pain isn't punishment, and living isn't betrayal. He turned to her, his gaze so intense it made her heart skip a beat. How do you know all this? Amara gave a sad smile. Because I once carried guilt that wasn't mine either. My mother had a stroke when I was 24. I was working a double shift at the hospital. She called saying she didn't feel well. I said, go to the clinic, Mama. I'll call you later. She paused. She went alone, died alone. And I never forgave myself for not dropping everything and going with her. Minjun touched her hand slowly, hesitant. You couldn't have known. Exactly. Amara intertwined her fingers with his. And neither could you. We're not fortune tellers. We're just human. They sat there on the cold marble floor in silence, holding each other's hands, as if it were the only thing keeping the world from falling apart. After a long moment, Minjun said, You know what's worse? The organization wants me to take a wife. They say it's necessary, that I need an heir, that I need to move on, as if love were something you can replace like business partners. And you? What do you want? Minjun looked at their intertwined hands. I don't know anymore. Before, I just wanted everyone to leave me alone, to stop pressuring me, to stop trying to fix my life. But now, he lifted his eyes, met hers. Now I'm not sure I want to be alone. The air between them grew heavy. Amara let go of his hand too quickly. I think you need some rest. Amara, come on up. She stood, offering her hand. Let's get you to bed before you catch pneumonia sitting on this cold floor. Minjun took her hand, letting her help him up. He was tall, very tall, and suddenly Amara realized how close they were. Thank you, he said softly, for everything. You're welcome. Amara tried to sound professional, failed miserably. It's my job. No, it's not. Minjun took a step back as if forcing distance. No other nurse ever did what you do. Maybe because no other nurse was stubborn enough to handle you. He almost smiled. Maybe. Amara turned to leave, but before reaching the door, she heard, Amara. She stopped. Stay, just until I fall asleep, please. She should say no. She should keep it professional. She should walk out, go back to her room, and pretend this night never happened. But when she turned and saw Minjun there, vulnerable, human, real, she couldn't do it. All right, but only until you fall asleep. She sat down in the armchair. Minjun laid back on the bed and pulled up the blanket. Do you really snore? Amara asked, trying to lighten the mood. Haven't you found out yet? No, you sleep like a normal person. Honestly, kind of disappointing. Minjun laughed softly. Tired. Sorry to disappoint. That's all right. I forgive you. He closed his eyes, and a few minutes later, his breathing grew slow, deep, calm. Amara stayed there, watching. And she realized, with a tightening in her chest, that she was starting to feel something she shouldn't, something dangerous, something that could ruin everything. But for the first time in her life, Amara Okfor didn't care about the consequences. She only cared about the man sleeping peacefully in front of her, the man who was slowly becoming everything. The morning began with Amara dragging Minjun out of bed at 6 a.m., literally. Get up! Come on, move! Minjun opened one eye, looking at her as if Amara had completely lost her mind. Are you insane? No, but you'll go insane if you keep lying in this bed 23 hours a day. Amara pulled the blanket away. Come on, we're going for a walk. A walk? Minjun sat up, indignant. You want me to walk? Yes, with your legs, one foot in front of the other. Familiar with the concept? Of course I'm familiar with it, but I'm injured. You're better, much better, and now you need to rebuild your strength. Amara crossed her arms. So get up, put on something comfortable. We're taking a stroll in the garden. Minjun stared at her for a long moment. And if I refuse? Then I'll tell Miss Park you keep soju hidden under your bed. He froze. How do you know that? I'm a nurse. I know everything. Amara smiled, victorious. Now, let's go. You've got 5 minutes to get dressed. Minjun muttered something in Korean that was probably not a compliment, but he stood up. 15 minutes later, they were in the estate's inner courtyard. A stone fountain in the center, bamboo plants, a path of smooth pebbles shaded by cherry trees. And Minjun, wearing a simple black tracksuit and running shoes, looked like a prisoner being led to his execution. This is ridiculous. Keep walking. My dignity is being destroyed. Your dignity will survive. Now move those legs. They started walking slowly. Minjun limped a little, still using his cane for support, but he was moving. After 2 minutes, he stopped. There, I walked. Amara turned, hands on her hips. You walked 10 yards, and that's enough? Minjun, Amara, walk. No, walk. He huffed, but kept going. When they finished the full circle around the garden, about 5 minutes, Minjun practically collapsed on the stone bench by the fountain. I need to rest, immediately. Amara rolled her eyes. You're fine. Take a deep breath. I can't. I'm exhausted. You're not exhausted. You're out of shape. That's technically the same thing. Amara let out a laugh. You're dramatic. I'm realistic. You're spoiled. Minjun opened his mouth to argue, but noticed she was laughing. Laughing for real. And that sound was good. Better than good. So he decided not to complain. At least not much. Tomorrow, we'll do it again, Amara said, sitting beside him on the bench. You're relentless. Thank you. I'll add it to my resume. In the following days, the routine became a ritual. Morning walks, breathing exercises in the afternoon, stretching at night. And Minjun complained. A lot. This isn't stretching, it's torture. Breathe and reach. I am reaching. You're pretending. I can tell. How can you tell? You don't have X-ray vision. Yes, I do. Comes with the annoying nurse package. Miss Park, watching from the second floor window, with a cup of tea in her hands, smiled. For the first time in 3 years, Minjun looked alive. And that African nurse, with her clumsy, no-filter ways, was achieving something 15 professionals couldn't, making Minjun want to get better. She took a sip of her tea and thought, maybe that girl is the best thing that ever happened to him. But not everyone thought the same. In the estate medical wing, Dr. Kim, the chief physician and trusted man of the organization's elders, flipped through Minjun's health reports with a dark expression. He's improving, the assistant said cheerfully. I know, Dr. Kim replied, closing the folder. And that's a problem. The assistant frowned. How is that a problem? Isn't that exactly what we want? Not when the improvement comes from unauthorized methods. He picked up the phone. Breathing, meditation, walks. That's not medical protocol. It's improvisation. And improvisation has no place in treating the organization's leader. But it's working. That doesn't matter. Dr. Kim dialed a number. The elders need to know. Meanwhile, in the garden, Amara was trying to teach Minjun how to meditate. Close your eyes. Why? Because that's how it works. And what if I don't want to close my eyes? Then you'll just sit there like a stubborn statue. Amara sat down on the ground, cross-legged. Come on, sit here. Minjun looked at the ground as if it were lava. On the ground? Yes, Mr. Huang. On the ground, like regular people. I'm not regular people. Today you are. Now sit. He sighed, but sat down awkwardly, grumbling. This is uncomfortable. You'll get used to it. Now close your eyes and breathe. I'm breathing. Breathe slowly. I'm breathing slowly. No, you're breathing like an irritated person. Because I am irritated. Amara opened her eyes and looked at him. Minjun was sitting cross-legged, eyes closed, brow furrowed, breathing with the determination of someone about to explode. She couldn't help it. She started laughing. What is it? Minjun opened his eyes. You look like you're trying to solve an impossible problem. I am trying. It's called meditation. No, it's called tension pretending to be peace. Amara was still laughing. Relax, for heaven's sake. I don't know how to relax. Obviously, you're the most tense man I've ever met. Minjun looked at her, and for the first time, he laughed too. A short, low, but genuine laugh. Do you really think I'm the worst patient you've ever had? Without a doubt, but also the funniest. They stayed there, sitting on the garden floor, laughing like two ordinary people who, for a moment, forgot all about organizations, expectations, and invisible walls. It was one of the best moments Amara had in weeks, until Dr. Kim's voice echoed from across the garden. Miss Okafor, I need to speak with you. Now. The laughter stopped. Amara stood, brushing the grass from her pants. Minjun stood too, tense. What does he want? I don't know, but it can't be good. She was right. Dr. Kim crossed the garden, a folder under his arm, and an expression that clearly said, You're in trouble. Miss Okafor, come with me. There are some concerns about your treatment methods. Amara folded her arms. What concerns? We'll discuss it in private. No. Minjun stepped forward. We'll discuss it here, now. Dr. Kim looked at Minjun, then at Amara, and smiled. A cold smile. As you wish, Mr. Huang. But the medical board is questioning the legitimacy of Miss Okafor's methods. And frankly, so am I. Amara felt her stomach drop, and she realized the battle was just beginning. Inside the estate, Dr. Kim opened his mouth to continue his speech about questionable methods when the sharp sound of expensive heels echoed through the marble hall. Everyone turned. A stunning woman walked through the garden as if she were on a runway. A designer dress, long black hair perfectly styled, flawless makeup. Behind her, Huang Jae-sung, Minjun's older brother and second in command of the organization, walked with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Minjun, the woman exclaimed, opening her arms. My dear cousin. Minjun froze. Amara noticed immediately. He wasn't happy. Ji-hee, Minjun said, forcing a smile. What a surprise. A wonderful surprise, I hope. Ji-hee came closer and kissed both his cheeks. Jae-sung told me you were getting better. I had to see it for myself. Jae-sung joined the group, greeted Dr. Kim with a nod, then turned his gaze to Amara. And you must be the famous African nurse. Amara held out her hand. Amara Okafor, nice to meet you. Jae-sung shook her hand with unnecessary firmness. I've heard a lot about you. Apparently, you've caused some interesting changes around here. The tone made it clear that interesting wasn't a compliment. Positive changes. Minjun cut in, tense. Amara has been extremely competent. I'm sure she has. Jae-sung smiled, though his eyes stayed cold. But I think we all agree Minjun needs something more traditional, something aligned with our ways. Amara crossed her arms. With all due respect, what Mr. Huang needs is effective medical treatment, and the results speak for themselves. Unauthorized results, Dr. Kim added quickly. Authorized or not, he's better, Amara shot back. Ji-hee, who had been quietly watching, gave a delicate laugh. My, what a dedicated nurse. She looked at Minjun with exaggerated admiration. You're lucky, cousin. It's rare to find someone so involved in their work. Amara felt her stomach twist. There was something in Ji-Hai's tone, sweet as melted sugar, but far from sincere. Min-jun cleared his throat. Ji-Hai, what brings you here, really? You say that as if I needed a reason to visit my favorite cousin. Ji-Hai blinked, pouting slightly. But since you asked, she glanced at Jae-sung, who nodded. I came to talk about the future. What future? Our future. Ji-Hee took a step closer and touched Min-jun's arm. Jae-sung told me the elders have been pressuring you to settle down, and I thought, why not consider someone who already knows you? Someone who understands your position. Amara felt something tighten in her chest. Something awful. Something she didn't want to name. Min-jun looked at Ji-Hee, then at Jae-sung, then briefly at Amara. Ji-Hai, I appreciate your concern, but you don't need to answer now, Ji-Hai interrupted with a smile. I just want you to know the option exists, and that I would be honored. Jae-sung put a hand on his brother's shoulder. It's an excellent proposal, Min-jun. Ji-Hee is from a respected family. She knows the protocols. It would be perfect. Perfect, Dr. Kim agreed, as if anyone had asked for his opinion. Amara looked at Min-jun, waiting for him to say something. Anything. But he just stood there in silence, trapped between expectations and demanding looks. Well, Amara said, forcing a professional smile. I think I'll let you have your family discussion. I have medical reports to organize. She turned and started walking toward the estate. Miss Okafor, Jae-sung called. Amara stopped, glanced over her shoulder. Yes? Thank you for your services so far, but I think it's time we consider other care options. Amara's blood boiled. Other options? Mr. Huang is healthier than he's been in the past 3 years. The numbers don't lie. Numbers aren't everything, Dr. Kim added. Of course they are. Amara turned fully, facing both men. He's walking, sleeping better, having fewer episodes. That's not a questionable method. That's progress. Amara, Min-jun said quietly, almost like a warning. She looked at him, and what she saw broke her. Fear, not physical fear. Fear of displeasing, of disappointing, of not being what others expected. Amara took a deep breath, forcing her professionalism back into place. Excuse me. And she left. Inside the suite, Amara threw her clipboard on the desk harder than she meant to. Idiot, she muttered to herself. You're an idiot, Amara Okafor. Idiot for what? Amara spun around. Min-jun was standing at the door, still looking like someone who had just survived an ambush. Shouldn't you be outside with your future fiancée? Min-jun closed the door behind him. She's not my future fiancée. Oh no? Because it sounded pretty official. Jae-sung was practically planning the wedding. Jae-sung plans many things without asking me. And you let him? Min-jun frowned. What's that supposed to mean? It means you let him. Amara crossed her arms. You stand there quiet while they decide your life, while they parade women in front of you like you're some chess piece. It's not that simple. Of course it is. You're the head of the organization. You're in charge. But you act like you don't have a voice. Because I don't, Min-jun snapped. Do you think it's easy? Do you think I can just do whatever I want? I have responsibilities, expectations, an entire organization, an entire legacy waiting for me to... To what? Amara interrupted. To marry someone you don't love. To live unhappy just to please the elders. And what do you suggest? That I send everyone away and do whatever I please? Yes, exactly that. They stood there, frozen in the middle of the suite, breathing hard, staring at each other with dangerous intensity. Then Min-jun said quietly, What if what I want is impossible? Amara swallowed hard. Nothing is impossible. You don't understand. He looked away. There are things that can't happen. Because of protocol, rules, because of everything. The silence that followed was suffocating. Amara wanted to say something. She wanted to shout that rules were meant to be broken, that love mattered more than expectations. But the words wouldn't come out because she knew. Deep down, she knew Minjun was right. They came from different worlds. He was the head of a powerful organization. She was a nurse from Lagos drowning in debt, and fairy tales didn't happen in real life. "I'll prepare your medication," Amara said, her voice trembling. "You must be tired." Minjun didn't answer. She left the suite without looking back. And for the first time since arriving at the estate, Amara Okafor wondered if she should have accepted that job at all. On the other side of the door, Minjun leaned against the wall, closed his eyes and whispered, "I'm sorry." But Amara didn't hear. Amara couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned in bed until midnight, gave up, and decided that since she was awake, she might as well check on Minjun's vitals. Just professionalism, she told herself as she walked down the hallway. Nothing but professionalism. She knocked softly on the suite door. No answer. She opened it slowly and found Minjun sitting on the balcony, looking out at Seoul lit up at night, still fully dressed, clearly as sleepless as she was. "Can't sleep?" Amara asked, leaning against the doorway. He turned, surprised. "Apparently, neither can you." "Touché." She stepped in and closed the door. "Want me to make some tea, or should I pretend I'm here strictly for medical reasons?" Minjun almost smiled. "You're here for strictly medical reasons." "Of course, totally, 100%. Amara crossed her arms. "Now sit down, I'm checking your blood pressure." He obeyed, sitting in the chair near the balcony. Amara grabbed the blood pressure monitor, wrapped the cuff around his arm, and realized her hands were shaking. "Nervous?" Minjun asked, watching her. "No, just tired." "Liar." Amara looked up and met his eyes. She was too close, dangerously close. "Your blood pressure's normal," she said, removing the cuff a little too quickly. "Heart rate's fine too. Everything looks good." "Amara, your recovery is progressing well." "Amara, stop." She stopped, took a deep breath, looked at him. "What do you want me to do, Minjun? I mean, really, because I'm trying to keep things professional, but you keep looking at me like that and like what? Like that, like I matter." Minjun stood up slowly, still holding her gaze. "You do matter." Amara's heart raced. "Don't say that." "Why not?" "Because it makes everything harder." "It's already hard." He took a step closer. "Since the first day you came here and told me you wouldn't leave just because I told you to." Amara stepped back, but hit the side table, trapped. "We can't do this." "I know. You're the head of an organization. I'm your nurse. There are rules, protocols, expectations. I don't care. But I do." Amara placed her hands on his chest to keep some distance. "I care, because when this goes wrong, and it will, I'll be fired, deported, and you'll still be here being pressured to marry Jihi or whatever woman Jae-sung throws in front of you." Minjun held her wrists. Gentle, firm. "What if I don't want to marry Jihi? Then you'll marry someone else, someone suitable, someone who isn't me. What if I want you?" The words hung in the air, heavy, impossible to ignore. Amara felt her eyes sting. "Don't do that. Don't make me believe in something that can't happen." "Who says it can't?" "The whole world. Your family. The organization." She tried to pull her wrists free, but he held tighter. "Minjun, I'm a Nigerian nurse, drowning in debt who can barely pay rent. You're the head of one of Seoul's most powerful organizations. We live on different planets. Then maybe it's time I change planets." Amara blinked. "What?" Minjun released her wrists, but didn't move away. He raised a hand slowly, touched her face. His thumb brushed her cheek. "You reminded me what it's like to be alive again, to want to wake up in the morning, to feel." His voice was rough, vulnerable. "And I don't want to go back to living in the dark." Amara closed her eyes. A tear slipped down. "That's not fair." "I know. You're making me want impossible things." Good, because I want them too. She opened her eyes, and he was right there, so close she could feel his warmth, the scent of expensive cologne, and something else that was uniquely him. We shouldn't, Amara whispered. I know. But neither of them moved. Minjun leaned in. Amara held her breath. His lips were just inches from hers when the door burst open. Minjun, we need to talk about. Jae-sung stopped mid-sentence. Behind him, Miss Park froze, eyes wide. Amara jumped back so fast she hit the table, knocking over the blood pressure monitor, almost falling. Minjun caught her by the arm, keeping her from falling, which only made things worse. Jae-sung looked at them, then at Minjun's hand on Amara's arm, then back at his brother's face. What exactly is going on here? It's not what you think, Amara said, way too fast. Oh, really? Jae-sung crossed his arms. Because it looks exactly like what I think. Miss Park stepped in, closed the door behind her, and looked at Amara with a mix of panic and disappointment. Miss Okafor, what's happening here? I was checking his vital signs. Amara grabbed the monitor from the floor like it was evidence. Routine nightly protocol. At midnight, Jae-sung raised an eyebrow. Alone with the door closed? I always close the door. Patient privacy is important. Amara, Minjun began. No. Jae-sung raised a hand. Let me guess. You're going to tell me this was innocent, that nothing was happening, that I misunderstood. Minjun's jaw tightened. It's none of your business. None of my business. Jae-sung stepped closer. You're the head of our organization. Everything you do is my business, the elders' business, the entire family's business. This is ridiculous, Amara muttered. Jae-sung turned to her, eyes cold. You be quiet. Don't talk to her like that, Minjun said, his voice low and dangerous. Or what? You'll challenge me? Defy the family? Jae-sung laughed, but there was no humor in it. You can barely get out of bed, Minjun, and you want to play the hero for a nurse who clearly crossed every professional line. She didn't cross anything. Oh no, Jae-sung pointed at the two of them. You were inches apart, alone in the dark, and you expect me to believe nothing happened? Silence. Miss Park cleared her throat. Maybe Miss Okafor should go rest. It's late. Excellent idea, Jae-sung agreed. And tomorrow morning, we'll have a long conversation about her future here at the estate. Amara felt her stomach drop. I didn't do anything wrong. Not yet, Jae-sung said, but you were about to. He left, slamming the door. Miss Park looked at Amara with sadness. You should be more careful, dear. And she left too. Amara stood there, frozen in the middle of the suite, her hands shaking, her heart breaking. Minjun took a step toward her. Amara. No. She raised her hand to stop him. Don't say anything, just don't. And she walked out, leaving Minjun alone once again in the dark. Amara didn't sleep. At 6 a.m, 2 guards knocked on the guest room door. Miss Okafor, the organization's council requests your presence. Now. She knew this was coming, but knowing didn't make it any less terrifying. She dressed in her uniform with trembling hands, tied her hair back, and followed the guards through endless hallways to a room she had never seen before. The council chamber. Dark wooden walls, a huge U-shaped table. 7 men seated like judges, all wearing stern expressions. And in the center, Jae-sung. Miss Okafor. He gestured toward the single chair in the middle of the room. Sit. Amara sat, folded her hands in her lap to hide the shaking. I'll get straight to the point, Jae-sung began, flipping through a folder. We've been informed of multiple violations of professional protocol during your time here. Violations? Amara repeated. What violations? One of the older councilmen with gray hair cleared his throat. Inappropriate intimacy with the patient, unauthorized treatment methods, and last night, behavior that clearly crossed the limits of a professional relationship. Amara felt her blood boil. Behavior. I was checking his vital signs. At midnight? Jae-sung raised an eyebrow. Alone with the door closed? I always close the door. It's called patient privacy. Ever heard of medical ethics? The council members exchanged puzzled looks. We do not follow your African medical regulations here, another councilman said flatly. Clearly, because if you did, you'd know firing a nurse for doing her job is ridiculous. Ridiculous? Jae-sung leaned forward. Miss Okafor, you were hired to take care of Minjun's physical health, not to get emotionally involved, not to implement questionable methods, and certainly not to— He paused dramatically. Seduce him. I'm sorry, what? Multiple witnesses reported inappropriate closeness between you and Mr. Wang. Closeness? He was having panic attacks. I was doing my job. Your job doesn't include spending nights in his suite. I spent one night because he asked me to, because he was scared, because no one else cared enough to stay. The silence that followed was tense. Jae-sung closed the folder. Your termination is effective immediately. You have 2 hours to pack. A flight back to Nigeria has been arranged for this afternoon. Amara stood, shaking with anger. You can't do this. We can, and we are. He's getting better. The numbers prove it. He's walking, sleeping, living again. Thanks to methods that were not approved by the official medical team, Dr. Kim added, entering the room. Dangerous, unscientific methods. Unscientific? Amara turned to him. Deep breathing, exercise, emotional therapy. Those are in every modern medical manual. Not in ours. Amara looked around the room, at the closed faces, at Jae-sung watching her with barely hidden satisfaction. This isn't about protocol, she said quietly. This is because he was starting to be happy, and you don't want him happy. You want him obedient. Jae-sung stood, hands pressed against the table. You're out of line. No, I'm right, and you know it. The chamber doors burst open. Minjun walked in, still in his pajamas, barefoot, breathing heavily as if he'd been running. What's going on here? Everyone stood up on reflex, except Amara. Minjun, Jae-sung began. This matter doesn't concern. Answer the question. We're handling a personnel matter. Minjun looked at Amara, then at his brother. You're firing her. Yes, for violating protocol and showing inappropriate behavior. Inappropriate behavior? Minjun took a step forward. She saved my life. She's done more for me in 6 weeks than all of you have in 3 years. She crossed boundaries, Dr. Kim said. That's undeniable. The only boundaries crossed here are those of basic decency. You're firing the only person who actually cared about me. Because she what? Because she treated me like a human being. Because she's emotionally involved, Jae-sung said firmly. And so are you. And this cannot continue. Minjun clenched his fists. I don't accept this dismissal. You don't have a choice. The council voted 5-2. She leaves today. Then I'm dissolving the council. The council members gasped. Jae-sung went pale. You can't do that. Yes, I can. I'm the head of this organization. You're a leader who can barely stand, Jae-sung exploded. A leader being manipulated by a foreign woman who knows nothing about our culture, our traditions. Enough. Minjun slammed his hand on the table. The sound echoed through the room. Complete silence. Amara stays, Minjun said, his voice dangerously calm. And if anyone tries to remove her by force, they'll answer directly to me. Understood? Jae-sung stared at him. You're choosing her over your own family, over the organization. I'm choosing someone who treats me like a person, not like a business asset. Minjun, Amara said quietly. Stop. He looked at her. I'm not letting them do this to you. You don't have a choice. Amara stood up, forcing a smile. They have power. I don't. And if you fight them because of me, you'll lose everything. I don't care. But I do. She took his hand quickly, discreetly. Let me go, Minjun, please. No. The pain in his eyes was unbearable. 2 guards entered the room. Miss Okafor, We need to escort you to your quarters so you can collect your belongings. Amara let go of his hand. Goodbye, Mr. Huang. It was an honor taking care of you. She walked out before the tears could fall. Minjun tried to follow, but Jae-sung grabbed his arm. Let her go. Let me go. Let her go, Minjun. This is for your own good. Minjun pulled his arm free, but two other council members were already blocking the door. Mr. Huang, please, this is for your own good. For my own good. Minjun looked at all of them with contempt. You know nothing about my good. He left, slamming the door so hard that the echo thundered through the hall. In the corridor, Amara leaned against the wall, took a deep breath, and finally let the tears fall. Amara's suitcase weighed 30 pounds, but it felt like a ton as she dragged it down the estate corridor, escorted by two guards who looked like they were leading a criminal to her execution. Miss Park appeared at the corner of the hallway. She stopped, looked at Amara with an expression that mixed guilt and duty. Amara stopped too. I came to say goodbye, Miss Park said softly. You don't have to. I understand. Amara forced a smile. You were just doing your job. It's not just that. Miss Park took a step closer. I was harsh with you last night. Maybe too harsh. And I want you to know that. She took a deep breath. I saw what you did for him. I saw how he changed. And part of me hopes you find a way to come back. Amara felt her eyes sting. Miss Park, he needs you. Miss Park placed something in Amara's hand, a folded piece of paper. Don't open it now. Open it when you're on the plane. What is it? Miss Park only smiled sadly and walked away. Amara put the paper in her pocket and kept walking. Incheon International Airport was packed. Families saying goodbye, businessmen rushing, tourists taking photos. Amara sat at the boarding gate with her suitcase beside her, passport in her hands, and a hollow feeling in her chest that seemed to drain the life out of her. Flight 847 to Lagos, now boarding at gate 12. She stood up, grabbed her suitcase, took 3 steps toward the line, and then she heard it. Shouting, noise, people running. Amara turned. Across the terminal, a crowd was parting like the Red Sea, and in the center, walking with difficulty, leaning on a cane, wearing all black and barefoot, was Minjun. Behind him, 6 security guards that tried to clear the way as passengers pulled out their phones, filming, shouting. It's Huang Minjun. What's he doing here? Is someone recording this? Amara dropped her suitcase. He can't be here, she whispered. He can't. But he was, and he was coming straight toward her. Their eyes met across the crowded terminal, and Minjun didn't look away. Not for a single second. Amara started to walk, slowly, then faster, until she was running. They met in the middle of the terminal, surrounded by dozens of people filming, taking pictures, watching the impossible happen. Are you out of your mind? Amara gasped. What are you doing here? Minjun was breathing hard, clearly exhausted, but smiling. Stopping you from making the biggest mistake of your life. My mistake? Minjun, you shouldn't be here. You can barely walk. Then hold me. He dropped the cane. Amara grabbed his arm, desperate. You're going to fall. No, I'm not, because you're here. This is insane. You know that, right? I do, and I don't care. Minjun held her face in his hands. Amara Okafor, you're not getting on that plane. I have to. I was fired, deported. Then I'll reverse it. You can't reverse the council's decision. Yes, I can, because I'm the head of the organization. He paused, his eyes shining. And more importantly, because I love you. The entire terminal seemed to freeze. Amara felt her knees go weak. What? I love you, Minjun repeated, louder this time, so everyone could hear. I've loved you since the first day you walked into my suite and refused to leave. I love you because you're annoying, stubborn, funny, and the only person who made me remember what it feels like to be alive. And I'm not letting you go. Amara was crying now, laughing and crying at the same time. You can't do this. Your family, the organization, they'll destroy you. Let them. Minjun pulled her closer. I spent 3 years letting other people decide my life, letting fear and guilt control me. But you taught me that living isn't betrayal, and I choose to live with you. Minjun, stay. Please stay with me. Amara looked around at the cameras, the guards, the crowd watching like it was a movie. Then she looked back at Minjun, at the man who had once been impossible, intolerable, lost, and who now stood here in a crowded airport, barefoot and vulnerable, asking her to stay. Are you sure? She whispered. Completely sure. Because if I stay, there's no going back. It'll be you and me against everyone. Good. Minjun smiled. I like those odds. Amara laughed, a shaky, tearful sound. You're impossible. I know, it's part of my charm. And then, without warning, Minjun knelt down, right there, in the middle of Incheon International Airport, with hundreds of people watching. The crowd gasped all at once. Amara covered her mouth with her hands. Minjun, get up. No. He held her hand. Amara Okafor, you healed me when I thought I couldn't be healed. You made me laugh when I'd forgotten how. You gave me hope when I had none. His voice broke. Marry me. The terminal exploded in cheers, applause, phones recording from every angle. Amara dropped to her knees in front of him, holding his face in her hands. Are you sure? Absolutely sure. Because I'm just a Nigerian nurse with no money, no title, nothing to offer except love and sarcasm. Minjun smiled through his tears. That's all I ever wanted. Then yes. Amara kissed his forehead. Yes, I'll marry you. You impossible crazy man. The crowd erupted. Security tried to control the scene, but it was too late. Dozens of videos were already being posted, shared, going viral. The head of the Hwang organization had just proposed to a Nigerian nurse in an airport, on his knees, and she had said yes. Minjun stood with her help and pulled her into a tight embrace. You won't regret this, he whispered in her ear. I know, Amara laughed, but you probably will. I'm very annoying. I'm counting on it. They stood there, holding each other in the middle of the chaos while the world watched. And somewhere in the Hwang estate, Jae-sung watched the viral videos online with an expression of pure horror, because his brother had just done the unthinkable, and there was no turning back. The video reached 2 million views in 4 hours. Amara watched the numbers climb on her phone as the official car passed through the gates of the Hwang estate. Beside her, Minjun held her hand tightly, as if afraid she might disappear. Are you sure about this? She asked for the 10th time. Completely, he answered for the 10th time. Because there's still time for me to go back to the airport. Catch the next flight. Pretend none of this happened. Minjun turned to face her. Do you want to leave? Amara looked into his eyes and said, no. But I also don't want you to lose everything because of me. Then let's make sure I don't. The car stopped at the main entrance. Jae-sung was already waiting, and he didn't look angry. He looked terrified. The council chamber was even tenser than the last time. The 7 council members were seated. Jae-sung sat in the center, but without his usual arrogance. There was something broken in his posture. Dr. Kim sat beside him, holding a thick folder, looking uncomfortable. And Miss Park, in the corner, watched everything closely. Amara and Minjun entered hand in hand. Jae-sung didn't slam the folder on the table. He simply looked at his brother with an expression that mixed pain and desperation. You don't understand what you've done, he said quietly. You don't understand the risk. Minjun frowned. Risk? Jae-sung, I confess my love to the woman I love. What's the risk in that? The risk of losing you again. Jae-sung burst out, standing up. The risk of seeing you give yourself completely to someone, and then. He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't have to. Silence filled the room like heavy smoke. Amara understood before Minjun did. You're afraid I'll hurt him, she said softly. The same way your fiancée hurt you when she died. Jae-sung turned to her, his eyes shining. You don't understand. No one does. He pointed at Minjun. When Sujin died, I watched my brother fall apart. He didn't eat. He didn't sleep. He didn't talk. He just disappeared. And I swore I'd never let that happen again. Minjun took a step forward. So you kept me trapped. You kept me sick. I kept you safe. Jae-sung hit his chest. If you don't love, you can't lose. If you don't give yourself, you can't break it. I did what I had to do to protect you. By isolating me, controlling me, keeping me from living, keeping you from suffering. But I was suffering, Minjun shouted. Every single day, in silence, alone, because you decided I was too fragile to make my own choices. Dr. Kim cleared his throat. Mr. Huang, perhaps it's time to quiet, Dr. Kim, Jae-sung said. But without anger, just exhaustion. Amara looked at Dr. Kim and realized he wasn't a villain. He was just a man following orders from someone he respected. Dr. Kim, she said gently, do you really believe that keeping Minjun sick was helping him? Dr. Kim looked away. I followed the protocol established by Mr. Jae-sung. He knows Minjun better than anyone. I simply did my duty. No, Minjun said firmly. He doesn't know me. He knows the broken version of me that he helped create. Jae-sung turned to him as if he'd been slapped. I protected you. You smothered me. Because I love you. Jae-sung's voice broke on the last word. And for the first time since Amara had met him, she saw tears in his eyes. When Sujin died, I held you while you cried, Jae-sung whispered. I carried you when you couldn't walk. I fed you when you refused to eat. And I watched you want to give up on life. He wiped his eyes angrily. I almost lost you. And that destroyed me too. I won't go through that again. I can't. The silence that followed was different. It wasn't anger. It was understanding. Minjun stood still for a long moment. Then slowly, he walked up to his brother and placed a hand on his shoulder. Jae-sung, look at me. Jae-sung lifted his eyes. I know you were trying to protect me. I know you acted out of love, but you can't keep me in a cage for the rest of my life just because you're afraid I'll fly and get hurt. Minjun took a deep breath. Living means taking risks. Loving means taking risks. And yes, maybe I'll get hurt again. But I'd rather live one full day than survive 1,000 half-lived ones. And what if you don't survive? Jae-sung whispered. What if it destroys you? Then Amara will help me rebuild. Minjun looked at her and smiled, just like she already has once. Amara felt tears roll down her cheeks. Jae-sung looked at her, really looked, not with contempt, with fear. How do I know you won't abandon him? He asked, his voice trembling. How do I know you'll stay when things get hard? Amara took a step forward. You don't know. You'll have to trust. She paused. But I can tell you this. I've seen Minjun at his worst. I've seen him have panic attacks at 3 a.m. I've seen him cry. I've seen him broken, and I didn't walk away. I held his hand and breathed with him until it passed. Her voice grew stronger. I won't walk away now. I won't ever walk away. Because I love him, truly. Not the power, not the wealth. Him. Jae-sung stayed silent, struggling with emotions he clearly didn't know how to process. One of the older counselors cleared his throat. Perhaps we can find some middle ground. Jae-sung turned, confused. Middle ground? Yes. Conditions. The advisor looked at Amara. Miss Okafor must learn our customs, study our culture, respect our traditions. The marriage must follow full protocol. And, he paused, there will be a 3-month adjustment period to ensure Miss Okafor is prepared for life in this family. Amara swallowed hard. 3 months? Not a test, the advisor corrected gently. A period of learning. You will live in the estate. You'll learn what it means to be part of this family. And at the end, we will officially vote on approving the marriage. Minjun opened his mouth to protest, But Amara squeezed his hand. I accept. Amara, I accept, she repeated, looking at Jae-sung. Because I understand. I understand that you're scared. I understand that you love your brother and want to protect him. And I want to prove to you that I won't hurt him, that I'll take care of him, that I'll stay, always. Jae-sung stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. Just once, small, but it was there. The senior advisor struck the gavel. Then it's decided. We'll proceed to the vote. Who approves the 3-month period before the official marriage? 5 hands went up immediately. Jae-sung hesitated, looked at Min-jun, then at Amara, and slowly raised his hand. Dr. Kim followed. 7-0, the advisor announced, clearly surprised. Unanimous, the proposal is approved. Amara let out the breath she'd been holding. Min-jun pulled her into a tight hug. You won't regret this, he whispered. I know. The 3 months passed in a blur of protocol lessons, cultural studies, and absurd wedding preparations. Amara learned to make traditional Korean dishes under the strict supervision of the estate chef. She studied the Hwang family history with a tutor who had more patience than any saint. She practiced bowing, walking in hanbok without tripping, and memorizing the faces and names of 57 important family members. And through it all, Min-jun was there, supporting her, laughing with her, breathing with her. The wedding took place in the estate's main garden, transformed into a dream. Traditional Korean decorations mixed with touches of Nigerian culture, hanbok and Ankara fabric, Korean drums and African djembe. 2 worlds, 1 celebration. When Amara walked down the aisle in a stunning hanbok with Nigerian embroidery, Min-jun cried. When Min-jun said his vows, promising to love, honor, and breathe with her like a normal person for the rest of his life, Amara laughed through her tears. And when Jae-sung stood to give a speech, the room went silent. I did terrible things, he said, his voice trembling. Thinking I was protecting my brother, I almost destroyed his happiness, and I almost lost her before I even really met her. He looked at Amara. Thank you for not giving up, for proving me wrong, for loving my brother the way he deserves to be loved. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. The reception was perfect chaos. Min-jun tried to dance the traditional Korean wedding dance and accidentally kicked over a decoration. Amara attempted to speak Korean during her speech and accidentally told everyone she loved eating chairs instead of kimchi. Miss Park gave a hilarious speech about the 3-month trial period, ending with, she learned 57 names. She deserves a medal, not just a husband. And when the night ended, when the guests left, when the lights went out, Amara and Min-jun stayed in the empty garden, still in their wedding clothes, sitting on the ground among the flowers. No regrets? Min-jun asked. Not one, Amara said, resting her head on his shoulder. Even though you have to memorize 57 more names for the extended family reunion next month? Even then. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars above Seoul. You know what's funny? Amara said. I came to Korea thinking I'd take care of an impossible patient for a few weeks, then go home. And I found my home. Min-jun kissed her forehead. Yes, you did. 6 months later, Amara stood in the newly opened Hwang Mental Health Center, cutting the ribbon alongside Min-jun, Jae-sung, and Dr. Kim. The center offered free therapy, support groups, and holistic treatment for anyone struggling with trauma, grief, or mental health challenges. The first patient was a young man named Ji-woo, 26 years old, severe trauma after losing his entire family in an accident. He resisted, he yelled, he refused treatment, just like Min-jun once had. During one particularly difficult session, he burst out, I don't want to get better, I deserve to suffer. Amara had heard those words before, and she knew exactly what to say. You don't deserve that, she said, firm but kind. You deserve to live. You deserve to heal. You deserve to forgive yourself. You don't understand. I understand more than you think. Amara sat beside him. And I'll tell you something someone very stubborn once taught me. Surviving isn't a crime, and living isn't betrayal. She smiled. And sometimes the best way to honor those we've lost is to keep living fully, completely, the way they would have wanted us to. Jiwoo looked at her, his eyes red from crying. How do I do that? By breathing, one day at a time. Amara smiled. Like normal people. He let out a wet, surprised laugh. And slowly, day by day, session by session, Jiwoo began to get better. Minjun sometimes watched the sessions with patient's permission. And in every word Amara spoke, in every technique she used, he saw reflections of his own journey. It's strange, he said one night as they lay in bed, seeing someone else go through what I went through. But now you can help, Amara said. You're living proof that healing is possible. We're proof, she kissed him softly. Yes, we are. 3 years later, Amara stood in the garden of the Huang estate, watching their 2-year-old daughter, Sarah, chase butterflies through the flowers. Minjun walked up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, and rested his chin on her shoulder. She has your stubbornness, he said, and your dramatic flair. Amara laughed. Did you see her throw herself on the ground this morning because I gave her the wrong color cup? She's perfect. She's exhausting. Also perfect. Zara ran toward them, holding a flower. Mama, Papa, look. Amara knelt down. It's beautiful, baby. Like you, Minjun added, picking her up and spinning her around. Zara giggled, and the sound filled the garden with pure joy. Later that night, after Sarah was asleep, Amara and Minjun stood on the balcony of their suite, the same place they'd stood so many times during that wild first year. Do you ever think about that first day? Minjun asked. When you walked in and I told you to leave. Amara laughed. Every day. Best decision I ever made, ignoring you. I was impossible. You still are? But you love me anyway. Unfortunately, yes. Minjun pulled her closer. Thank you. For what? For saving me, for staying, for teaching me how to breathe. Amara looked up at him, tears in her eyes. You saved yourself, Minjun. You did the hard work. You faced your fears. You chose to heal. I just held your hand. Then we saved each other. Yes, Amara whispered. We did. They stood there, wrapped in each other's arms as souls sparkled beneath the night sky. And Amara thought about everything that had happened. The 15 nurses who had run away before her. The impossible man no one could save. The folded letter Miss Park had given her, full of wisdom and hope. The 3 months of absurd protocols and cultural learning. The airport where everything changed. The wedding that united 2 cultures and 2 souls. And now, a center full of hope. A marriage full of love. A life full of purpose. A daughter who would grow up knowing that healing is possible, that love conquers fear, and that breathing like normal people is the most radical act of all. You know what's funny? Amara said, resting her head on his chest. What? I came here thinking I'd take care of an impossible patient for a few weeks, then go home. And I ended up finding my home, my family, my future. She looked up at him, smiling through her happy tears. I ended up finding everything. Minjun held her tighter, as if he wanted to keep that moment forever. We both did. And there, on the balcony of the Huang estate, a soul glowed beneath the starlit sky. 2 souls that had once been broken, one by deep trauma, the other by loneliness and loss, were finally whole. The nurse no one could stand had healed the impossible Mafia boss, and together they had healed each other, and now they would spend the rest of their lives healing the world, one patient at a time, one breath at a time, one hand held at a time, like normal people, because in the end, that was what made all the difference. Not the power, not the wealth, not the traditions or the protocols, but the simple humanity of 2 people refusing to give up on each other. It was love that healed when medicine couldn't. It was vulnerability that brought strength. And it was the courage to breathe together when everything seemed impossible. Their story didn't end there. It was only beginning. Because true love isn't the happy ending. It's the start of all the others. And what about you? If you were Amara, would you have agreed to care for the impossible patient? Or would you have run away like the 15 nurses before her? Tell us in the comments. We want to know everything you felt listening to this story. Every laugh, every tear, every moment that made you believe love and healing can change everything. On a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive more touching stories like this one. See you next time.